In 2018, a killer whale named Tahlequah gave birth off the coast of Washington state. The calf died within 30 minutes. What happened next lasted 17 days. Tahlequah carried the body. Through open ocean, through waves, through exhaustion, she pushed it with her rostrum, balanced it on her head, refused to let it sink. Scientists watching from boats described it as one of the most distressing things they had ever observed in the field. After 17 days, she finally let go. No one taught her to do that. There is no survival advantage to carrying a dead calf for 17 days. It costs energy. It slows movement. It does nothing. And yet, she did it. For 17 days. The question of whether animals understand death is one that scientists have been quietly arguing about for decades. And the more carefully we look, the harder it becomes to say the answer is simply no. Let's start with what understanding death would actually require. To understand death in the way we understand it, you need to grasp several things simultaneously. That it is universal, meaning it happens to everyone. That it is irreversible, meaning it doesn't come back. That it has a cause. And that it is inevitable, that it will happen to you. Developmental psychologists call these the 4 components of death understanding. Human children typically don't fully grasp all 4 until around age 7. So the question isn't just whether animals react to death, it's whether any of those 4 components show up in animal behavior. And they do, in ways that are genuinely difficult to explain away. Elephants are the most documented. When a herd member dies, the family doesn't simply leave. They return to the body. They touch it with their trunks, the lips, the face, the tusks. They stand near it in what researchers describe carefully and with clear discomfort as something resembling vigil. Elephant families have been observed returning to the bones of a dead relative years later. Not bones in general, the specific bones of that individual. They handle the skull, they carry the tusks, they spend time near remains in a way that is distinct from how they treat any other object in their environment. Joyce Poole, one of the foremost elephant researchers in the world, has spent decades watching this. She describes it as the elephants appearing to know what death is and to find it significant in a way that ordinary objects are not. Chimpanzees have been observed doing something that stops researchers cold. In 2009, a chimp named Pansy died at a Scottish wildlife park. In the hours before her death, other chimps in the group groomed her intensively, more than usual. When she died, the group fell quiet. Her daughter stayed beside the body through the night. In the days after, none of the chimps would sleep in the area where she had died, even though it was their established sleeping spot. They avoided it, without being told to. In the wild, chimpanzee mothers have been documented carrying the mummified bodies of their dead infants for weeks, sometimes months, cleaning them, grooming them, carrying them on their backs during travel as if they were still alive. At some point, they stop. Researchers don't fully understand what changes, but the behavior ends. Something shifts. Magpies, birds, with brains a fraction of the size of a primate, have been observed placing grass and twigs beside the body of a dead magpie, standing near it, then moving on. This is one of the most quietly startling findings in animal behavior, because it looks, uncomfortably, like something with a beginning and an end, like a response with structure, like something that acknowledges what has happened. Now here is where the scientific debate gets genuinely uncomfortable. Some researchers argue that these behaviors are grief, that animals experience something functionally similar to what humans experience when someone close to them dies, a disruption, a loss, a period of altered behavior before a return to normal. Others argue that we are projecting, that we are seeing grief because we want to see it, that what we're actually observing is simply the disruption of a social bond, a behavioral response to absence, not an understanding of death itself.
But here is the problem with that argument. The disruption of a social bond and grief are not easily separated. When a human grieves, what are they grieving? The absence of a person. The permanent, irreversible absence of a person. The understanding that the absence will never end. Is that so different from what Tahlequah was doing for 17 days in the Pacific? There is one behavior that cuts through most of the debate: avoidance. Across species, chimpanzees, elephants, corvids, animals consistently avoid the place where a group member died. Not the general area, the specific location, for extended periods, sometimes permanently. Avoidance is not grief in any sentimental sense. It is a behavioral update. It is the animal system registering something ended here, something that cannot be undone, and this place is now different because of it. That is closer to understanding irreversibility than most people want to admit. There's also evidence from captive studies. Researchers have shown that some great apes, when shown images of dead conspecifics, members of their own species, respond differently than they do to images of living individuals. Their attention patterns change. Something in the processing is different. The brain is categorizing dead differently from alive. That categorization is the beginning of a concept. It doesn't tell us what the animal feels. It never will. We have no way to access another consciousness, human or otherwise. But it tells us that the distinction exists inside the animal's cognitive system, that death is not invisible to them, that it registers as its own category of thing. And here's the part that most of the public debate misses entirely.
We keep asking whether animals understand death the way we do, and then when the answer is not exactly yes, we conclude it's no. But that framing assumes our understanding of death is the standard against which all others are measured. We grieve. We build rituals. We write about loss. We make it into stories and religions and art. We do more with our understanding of death than any other species. But more does not mean only. A chimpanzee carrying a dead infant for weeks is not doing nothing. A killer whale pushing a body through open ocean for 17 days is not doing nothing. An elephant handling the skull of a dead relative years after the death is not doing nothing. They are doing something. Something that begins with the same recognition we have, that what was alive is no longer, that the absence is real, that it matters. Whether we call that understanding death or something adjacent to understanding death is, in the end, a question about words. The behavior exists. It has been observed, documented, replicated across species and continents and decades of research. The only question left is whether we're willing to take it seriously. Tahlequah was spotted again in 2020. She had a new calf. It was alive and healthy, swimming beside her through the same waters where she had carried the last one. She moved differently now. The researchers who knew her said she looked, in their words, like herself again. Make of that what you will.